Hello, everyone, and warmly welcome on my behalf as well. My name is Tia, and I'll be one of the hosts here this year. Very excited. Very excited to see what we have in the program this year. I'm no expert in the area, but I'm very interested in games, so excited to hear what's coming up in the next couple of days. And just a small note for the audience, I've just heard that for good questions, we'll have some prizes for you at the end after each presentation. So make sure to ask some questions. And the first talk I'm happy to introduce is going to be Team Lönnqvist from Small Giant Games, talking a little bit about creating a free-to-play game in quite a short amount of time with not so many people. So welcome, Tim.
We're on. So, welcome to the first talk of ARTtech Assembly 2017. And let's jump to the deep end of free-to-play. So, I'm Tim Lönnqvist. I've been working with games for around 15 years, starting at early 2000, doing art, eventually moving on to design, level design, production, and so on. Worked on many projects. Small, large, successful, cancelled, and it seems like the sponsor of the talks, Remedy, is also kind of like mentioned on these slides. So 7 years at Remedy, focusing on third-person shooting. The company I'm working nowadays with, Small Giant Games, is a small company, around 11 people when I joined. Working here at Helsinki, it was founded by ex-Habbo people, some ex-marketing advertising experts. So, small company focusing on beautiful, engaging, free-to-play games. The company's done 2 games prior to Empires and Puzzles, Odwin's Escape and Rope Racers. Both are side-scrolling action games with free-to-play mechanics. So, from action and adventure, on my behalf, 7 years of shooting at Remedy, and as a company, like 2 full projects of pretty much like action, small nuggets of fast action, from something completely different, which was Empires and Puzzle. The game's been out now for around half a year. It's a free-to-play, match-3, RPG, MMO. You can probably add a few more letters there to just make it a big thing. And the game indeed is big. It's very different from the earlier project of the company, and very different thing for me as well. We kind of like chose to put everything there. So if you think of what could be a mobile game, kind of like the standard things, matching gems, yeah, check, we have that. Collecting heroes, building bases. We kind of like decided that we want to be there. We want to have it all in a game and see what happens. Luckily, players seem to like it. So we are nearly at full 5-star reviews in App Store and Google Play. I mean, this is after tens of thousands of reviews. Of course, if you happen to have played the game, you might have your pet peeves, and sure enough, our customer support does get angry emails about this and that, but it's been pretty cool to work in a project where, you know, the feedback, generally speaking, is very, very good. So the players seem to be getting out of the game what they want to get from a mobile game. And it's a free-to-play game. So a big part of free-to-play is that people actually get the game for free, and the company making the game hopes to actually be able to pay salaries for the employees and develop more games with the small purchases that people make along the way when they're playing the game. And this chart here, yeah, it's pretty visible there. That's actually the Russian chart from 1 week ago. So we've been, for some reason, if you happen to know why, please let us know. We haven't really focused marketing or anything in the Russian market. We've been in top 20 in revenues or gross in Russia for several months now. So one of the most profitable games on Apple phones on Russia. That's been pretty nice to know this. And actually, just after a few days after taking screenshots of this one, we got to top 10. So it was very nice to briefly be above World of Tanks and Clash of Clans in profitability in Russia. And sure enough, the game's actually doing pretty well in other countries as well, but bit more maybe, bit more sensibly, so to speak. Of course, we hoped that the game would be successful, but this is pretty cool. So the key of the talk is about going through a few learnings, a few of the things I've seen along the project, in the project, things that worked out maybe better, maybe differently than in anything I've seen in the project I've been part of. Few decisions we took along the way. They're kind of like production-centric, so maybe not any tiny decisions. Few big things we decided early on, which really paid off well. Might sound obvious, but one thing which we did with good discipline was to make a plan. Try to make a really, really good plan. Not design, but a plan, stick to it, and see if it works. And indeed, a good plan saves a lot of headache. Plan can mean many things. In this case, that message on the screen there is pretty much what I got as a designer from the CEO, from the product manager, from the higher-ups, as the mission for the game. Create a profitable, free-to-play game with an experienced but small team. And these words actually have a lot of meaning. If you have been developing a mobile game, if you have been thinking of developing a free-to-play game, a profitable free-to-play game actually has a lot of weight. There's tens or hundreds of games going out every single week to the mobile marketplace. Very, very few of them manage to basically do anything for the companies, for the developers, unfortunately. So if you want to be profitable, you should probably look into what does it mean to be profitable free-to-play game. Also, experienced but small team. Our guys, especially our engineers, they have done some amazing things back in the day in Habbo. So we knew we could probably do some cool things on the server side, on the social side, with very, very small team. Some ambitious things. We knew we could pull them off, but the team was very small. I mean, 11 people, and there was no like 11 plus this and this, these people doing other stuff. It was that whole company was around 11 people. And we actually wanted to do this game pretty fast. Aiming high was also part of the plan. So this is the how we actually figured out what to do. Deciding to try to be there in the top. Top 100 grossing is what we call it, looking at the American charts. Oh, these are the 10, 50, 75 most successful games in the US. Games that people play and do actually like pay money to play more and more. And that meant for me, as a designer, playing Mobile Strike for half a year and enjoying every second of it. Just basically making myself understand how these games tick. And if you happen to be designing these games, it's an interesting experience, but really worth it if you happen to dislike every single one of the 100 most enjoyed mobile games there on the market. It's probably going to be difficult to come up to design decisions that have a good, happy ending during the development. Well, in addition to these maybe a bit brutal goals, we did also know that we want to have something of our own. You know, we are proud of the company, we want to do something beautiful, and being from Finland, we do want to do the fun thing there as well. And the company had its history in arcade games. So we had a game jam a few months before we even thought of Empires and Puzzles, and that game jam resulted into a few prototypes. They were all done by engineers, programmers. We reserved kind of like 2 weeks, or probably less. Just people could do whatever they want. And one of the prototypes, an actiony, running, rope throwing thingy, that ended up being rope racers. But the other thing, a small puzzle prototype, puzzle combat prototype done by David Bargo, one of our engineers, that felt really good as the basis for Empires and Puzzles. And that was a decision again. It pretty much we knew there's going to be a long list of things to do. We know we actually, that top grossing chart, we want to be there. We actually want to take a lot of learnings from many of the other games. And we decided very early on that this prototype from David, we just got, you know, it's just a flat out decision. That's actually going to work out as the basis for the core of the game. Because we actually had, it was very understandable, it was quite original, it worked. There was a lot of work remaining, but instead of going back and forth, decisions were made. decisions, planning. It must be huge. Where we wanted to go, the boldly go where no man has gone before, we needed lots of things. I had rule of hundreds. If we have heroes, we have hundreds of heroes. If we have levels, we have hundreds and hundreds of levels. Items, monsters, whatever, hundreds. That kind of like just form the baseline of what we have to do. No question about it. We have to have, I think it was 200 levels. It's bare minimum. 100 heroes, bare minimum. We need to have modes, gameplay modes, features. We need to have global chat. And sure, we did kind of like think of, does it make any sense? And a lot of talks with the engineers to make sure that this is not completely impossible to aim there. But again, we had a very experienced team. But then, no real need to wonder more, do we need all of these things or not? Just agreeing, we need these things, and then it's a discussion how to do them and how to scope them down if needed. So a few steps we took along the way, a few examples of, again, planning things. Before any programming on the game proper, even prototype, a new prototype would have been done, we planned the game on paper. Paper means Photoshop in this case. So it is a mobile game. You can actually figure out surprisingly much of the whole game just by understanding that the game is going to end up on your phone, the platform is going to be on your hand. So many very important things of how you use the screen estate. How many features can you have on screen at once? How many things do you have to animate? Things that actually form like the base of a lot of how you interact with the game. Those really can be researched and tested on basically in an image format. So the three core parts of the game, match 3, base building, and exploring an expansive world, they all were planned out on Photoshop. And basically said, yep, this looks okay. And this blurry picture here, it's of course we used reference materials to kind of like just figure out what you're going to do. It's interesting how little actually changed in the layout from this screenshot from what we actually eventually published in the global version. Plan the game for real, which means prove the thing for the team. So it was just me and David who decided that we have a few weeks to plan and to create a prototype that shows how the game works. But that prototype, surprisingly little amount of that time was dedicated again into proving the core gameplay. How you actually match things. That's something that's already been proven in the game jam. Everyone in the company had played that prototype and thought, yeah, this is fun. So we did, of course, what we had to do, add the heroes and a few other things, but it was actually proving that we were going to do a very complex game. So we built a prototype in Unity that had the core, it had leveling up in heroes, unlocking levels, building a base. These things in small hacked together versions, they showed for the rest of the guys that we're going to do a complex game. The next year and a half, whatever it takes, we're going to do a very complex game with lots of moving parts, and it's about figuring out how to get them done and understanding that sometimes we might have to sacrifice some of the density or quality of an individual part to make sure that the big whole can be done. And that's, again, planning for me. We did after we decided on the 3 screenshots in Photoshop, there actually were very, very few design documents. This is the plan. The thing was to get the game playable for the rest of the company. Bit later, crucial step, plan and verify how to do the content for the game. So from the hundreds of things, the rule of hundreds, heroes is going to be the thing that players are going to want to collect, hopefully perhaps pay a bit of money at some point, but collect and grow and nurture and use in the game. So how do we get these hundreds of heroes and deciding that we have to get them from somewhere else? I'm going to be talking about outsourcing just a bit later. And verifying that process. So it was probably days or even less after the green light for the game that we just started outsourcing stuff to figure out how in a month, or in this case, a bit less than 2 months, we actually can get an asset that can be used in the game, can go to game, does work, does not eat up all the memory on the phone, and actually, in ideal case, that we would never ever have to revisit. And indeed, the heroes we got in the first 2 months, we haven't touched those assets in the months to come. So this worked pretty well, but it was a hard decision to make sure that we only have a bit of time in the beginning of the project to make sure this works, because the rest of the project is going to be actually multiplying the assets. Not everything works according to plan. There's things that you can't plan for, and this is an example of that. So adjust the flavor as needed. So the game probably like last fall, so this is already beyond soft launch when we went live in select markets. We noticed that we probably could do something to improve the downloads, when people actually find the game on the App Store, and they didn't quite click the install button as much as we would like. So we decided that we want to freshen up the looks of the game. We did not do extensive research or iteration on that. It was a decision. Again, there's enough examples there in the mobile world that if you want to decide a slightly different route of action, okay, we want to be slightly more colorful, slightly more smile and all that. We did not actually have to throw away any of the existing heroes. All the assets used for the, let's say, Luke's 1.0 were still used in the game. They just came in the game a bit later, and we added a few more smiling characters earlier in the game, added more color, changed the fonts, and made the game look friendlier. But this was thing that we had time for. It was impossible to know before, like very early in the project, this is going to happen. But something like this was so likely to happen that it was not a panic, and it didn't derail anything when we decided to do this. So, long story short, from A to B with very few detours, because some crucial planning steps were done. As I see it, very efficiently. From very, very first concept, a drawing, to global launch, which happened around half a year ago, 17 months. And the actual development to going live was much, much shorter, and this includes 7 months of being live in many, many markets. And to kind of point out that it was a heroic accomplishment for us, is that we actually finished development of Rope Racers while this was happening. So Rope Racers was incomplete. We were so confident in our plans that we thought that we could probably just let from the 11 guys we have a few to ship up another game and even support that one post-launch. Again, there's no crunching either. So by crunching, I think that's the lost weekends and the long evenings with pizza in the office. So those things didn't happen. Some of our guys physically can't stop working from home, so that's a different deal altogether. But that's their choice. There was no need to spend sleepless nights with this project. So yeah, first takeaway I've gotten from this project is that if a plan magically happens to hit all the targets, and if you're really disciplined in following some of the big decisions from early on, you might avoid some massive problems that I have seen in many projects where I've been before. Second takeaway, more related to art, is that outsourcing can really work if you let it work. What we did, we worked with several art partners and some audio partners, 4 or 5 different companies producing art from different places around the world. We ordered about 100 hero assets, 50 monster assets. We still keep ordering more assets. So quite a bit from this rule of hundreds. Jumping directly into some of the big, bold decisions that made all the difference, that made this possible, it was not many minutes that we gave the discussion, should we have any 3D. It was nah, there's no way, even if we outsource, implementation, iteration, figuring out how things move, how they fit in the screen. 3D is awesome. Again, I spent many, many years on that. I was 3D artist in many projects prior to Remedy. So that helped me to just say very strongly that there shall be no 3D whatsoever in this project. Thank you very much. Very few mandatory animations. Again, we did our homework, so to speak, with free-to-play games, the most successful free-to-play games. And coldly speaking, statistically speaking, very, very few of them really seem to rely on animations. So we decided it's great if we'll have some animation, we'll look into that matter, but it will never stop any of the outsourcing process. We basically decided the heroes shall not animate. Luckily, some really good people joined along the project, and again, our engineers, they figured out awesome things, awesome tools. So we actually animated far more than we thought, but the heroes still don't animate. Pretty much everything else has been gotten some animation along the way. And relaxed art direction. So again, decisions. And I've been close to art in many projects before. So if there will be hundreds of assets from many different outlets, many different vendors, if you have 0.3 outsourcing managers, I did all the outsourcing management aside, on the guy's side job, you know, between design and whatever. So just let's outsource like hundreds of units, hundreds of things. So there was no way to spend majority of the time making sure every single pixel matches the next pixel. So we decided that in most cases, probably it's if it looks cool, and if the engineers think it looks cool, it's cool. That really helps because the dragons and whatnot tends to be just awesome for the guys. So example, how to get one Mistress of Dark. She's now in the game with different name. This was from, I think this was from Canada, Asia, don't know. So not close here. Few steps, some of them easy, some of them hard, depending how you approach. Setting up the outsourcing process with someone, that's super easy. I was surprised. I hadn't done this before, so it was like a learning experience. I was surprised how many good companies there are. And every single company, very, very capable producers, easy to speak with, no matter if the company is like in China or working with Chinese artists. The producers are good. Setting up the communications, very easy. File sharing, daily reviews, everything works well. The world is full of really good outsourcing companies, and it's basically ridiculously easy to at least get 2D art that looks awesome. With 3D, there's of course probably more steps. Haven't tried it, but again, I'm assuming it probably works really well there as well. The second step, or second thing, which might not be that easy, and just something very close to how we work, is writing briefs, assignments for the companies that you're comfortable with. And this kind of like relates to how much time you allocated and what's your actual position in the flow. But let's say just for me, understanding again the practical time limits. I gave myself probably like 20-minute stops per brief. So really, her brief was a cool purple angel dragon chick, and some reference images. So they can't be too much. It's not about really writing her backstory and everything like that. It would be awesome, maybe in some other project. But I had to be comfortable with very, very brief, very, very short descriptions and assignments, and understanding that leaves a lot of room for unknowns. And the tough one, think like a producer, not like an artist. You should have someone in the loop, of course, who actually can make sure that the art matches your game. So everything I'm saying about like being flexible with the quality, we got very, very good stuff, and our game is very beautiful. And that's usually the one thing that all the positive reviews start with. Your game looks awesome. It's still like the producer approach really helps. If I would have approached this process really as an artist, like in the same way, if you open a Pixar art book and where it seems like they think about the shape of someone's head for years, we couldn't have done this. So handy, brutal principles that really help. The project shall fail unless you have hundreds of assets ready in half a year. That helps. I didn't have it painted anywhere, but it could have been kind of like burning on the wall. Never miss a deadline. This is all on your head, on your hands, because the outsourcing partners, as I mentioned, they were all really good. They will not miss the targets. They've been doing that stuff for quite a while, it seemed. So it's always, if you fail to give feedback, if you fail to, again, be comfortable with the brief, if in the end you think, nah, that's not what I liked, I'd like to, just redraw the whole thing, then it's going to fail. But they won't fail, so we chose that we shall never miss a deadline. It's a big decision. It meant few things maybe had to be accepted as they are, but the decisions and consistency and originality optional. All the art we have is original. We make sure of that. We follow the process from the first sketches onward. But again, someone has said that great game art has to be consistent. Consistency is the king. Well, I beg to differ. it does not have to be that consistent on the detail level. And originality, I mean, we're dealing with dragons and knights and stuff, so maybe not everything has to be, you don't really have to think of weeks of how could I create the most original dragon ever. Maybe it's cool that it's good enough. So, despite this very, very producery approach, this happened. Everyone involved, again, the artists on the outsourcing partners, they all draw amazingly well. There really is like great talent out there in Europe, in Asia, in America. Everyone is good. Everyone wants to do awesome stuff. As far as I know, the artists in the project were pretty happy in the companies worked with because, again, our briefs gave lots of flexibility for them. And they like to work with us more. And on our behalf as well, sure, sometimes if we do marketing art, our artists still end up touching up some of the assets, and our artists are very good. Founders of the company are illustrators, few of them. So, we call them to help if something has to look very specific like something for marketing purposes. Stuff goes to game pretty much usually as it is. So general quality of outsourced art was from good to great, or even amazing. Schedule or budget slips, none, because we decided there shall be no schedule slips. Use rate of outsourced art, 100%. Absolutely everything ordered got in the game. That was not the decision. I assumed we would probably have to lose something. We had kind of like this, acceptable amount of loss. I really thought we couldn't put everything in the game, but everything actually ended up being in the game. So thanks to relaxed art direction, and that quality of the assets actually improved all through the process. So here's an example of some upcoming stuff for the game. These are not yet in the game. 3 different vendors, Europe, Americas, and I think like Asia is sort of one of them. So this is nice stuff. And we get this very consistently whenever we need more, and we do need more. If you look very closely, if you have the artist's eye, it's not exactly same style in all the details. And originality, well, there's an undead pirate, and there's an angel lady, and there's a samurai with a golden armor of dragons. Man, never seen any of those before. But they're original piece of art, and I'm pretty damn sure that the players are going to enjoy it. We just added big Magneto-like hulking guy to the game like a few days ago in an update, and we got like tweets that the Megatron is OP and awesome, and people went pretty crazy about that new character as well. So, and he was pretty much in line with these guys. So it's working out really well. And there was more than enough for us to do. So deciding immediately that our heroes that our artists did really want to do actually. So we did decide that, sorry guys, this is the part that's easiest to do somewhere else, off the table from us. We did a few later on, but basically that left the rest of the art for us to wonder, and that was a good thing. The super important things there, menus, usability, VFX, marketing, and so on, that then we got to focus on. Examples of things that we didn't outsource, and it's a good thing. We briefly thought about outsourcing actually parts of the map, or the base, but it was a good thing we didn't. This, in our terms, took a long time. 3 weeks of iteration, going back and forth. It was, finding the right style for the game as well, but there was technical things. It's a big asset. It's got gameplay rules, how to fit the buildings, what's the distance between the buildings, so it's nice to click where it's played, and the different building steps, how many different variations. So a lot of moving parts were like technology, design, implementation, usability, interact. So this was a good thing. We did not outsource it. But we were a bit hungry, so we thought like maybe this could be done as well. But lucky thing we didn't. And we got, again, more of these animations here as well, because we learned how to build these. We have several people now who really know inside out what to do with the base. So we added birds there, and you can even tap the birds, and you can kind of go duck hunting in the base, and all kind of funny things, because it was then something like that our guys did. Let's see if this video now moves. Yes. And this is an example of a decision. So early on in the project, we thought, as mentioned, animation is not the driving thing for the game. We could basically ship. We assumed we could ship without animations. But if we do have the power to do animations, what's the one thing we animate? And the special attacks of the units was the one thing we decided to focus on. In our terms, this has taken a lot of work. one of our senior artists has learned to do the effects. It's been a long process, for more than 1 year now, of iterating, doing bigger and bigger and bigger effects. And one engineer is always on the call to develop new tools for the artist to do better and better effects. And that has paid off handsomely, because again, they're part of the heroes. These are the things that when people get a new hero, they have even more awesome specials to get. But again, big decision where kind of like we chose a direction, and luckily it paid off. Well, almost. So, second takeaway, outsourcing can really work. You can do big things with outsourcing nowadays if you let it work, but also understanding that approaching it the wrong way might cause you problems. It enables you to get certain kind of things in a certain kind of fashion very efficiently, but you should not rely on it in all things. Third takeaway, the third thing that went nicely was going live, making the game available for the players super early. Technical launch and soft launch. So, if you've been following what many people think and say about free-to-play games, one way to say what is a soft launch. The soft launch is made to see if the game is actually worth the complete. You should be able to see from an incomplete game, do people enjoy it, play it enough, and enjoy it even so much that they're willing to pay a bit for the incomplete game. And these kind of like have to tick, you have to tick all of these boxes to have reasonable assumption that you can actually ship the game, release the game on the global market, and then be able to grow the game even further. That's the cool part where we now are. The game is successful, so we can kind of like fulfill even bigger dreams of what kind of new cool things we have there. But it actually had to be, in some ways, successful while being incomplete. And we did a short technical launch before soft launch, so it's kind of good to remember that there are many steps along the way. So maybe after 4 or 5 months of development, we put a version out somewhere to see that does the game even, can people at all download it, play, do the servers work? So we had a lot to learn. We wanted to learn, and we did it from a certain perspective of the hard way. But again, decisions. Immediately decided we shall go live early. This is a chart from Canada. We went live there, it seems, June 2016. So that's half a year of development. All the code from the prototype was thrown away. Half a year of development from scratch, and that's when the game, the minimum viable product, the thing with all the key components, not all the features, but all the key components, was available for the players. This is where we wanted to start to get feedback. And I assume everyone expects and hopes the moment your game goes live, even the minimum viable product or baseline version of whatever, the thing that kind of is fun but might be missing lots of things, you hope that that shall catch fire. People will love it, and there's truckloads of money coming in from all directions. Well, that didn't happen. Duh. It was very, very slow in the beginning, but we had the plan of hundreds of thousands of whatever features. So it just confirmed the fact that we do have still ways to go. And sure enough, when we followed the plan, when we kept adding features, especially social features, so people could play with other people with alliances and stuff like that, things started to look up. And when the big features started to pile in the game, this is not downloads. This is profits. This is revenue from Canada. So October, November, we started to see that the first people kind of like realized that this game is something where I can actually I might spend a few dollars to actually get something, and that was nice. And then few months, just 5-6 months before the global launch, or early this year, things started to look really, really good. So in a way, it was not a linear curve, but it was a curve nonetheless. Few decisions, big decisions, planning things decided along the way. So even if the first results were not like, yay, slam dunk, best thing since sliced bread immediately when it went live, we decided not to iterate the core game for the heck of it. So again, I've seen that happen in some projects. Oh my God, something's not working. Let's change how the whole game works. because maybe changing some of the hardest things to change is the thing to do. No, we actually knew the game itself is okay. We had done lots of usability testing, played ourselves, asked opinions, so everyone seemed to be okay with the game as it is. We had no basic usability issues. So practically nothing changed in the core of the game. In the building a base, going through the world map, matching those gems, killing enemies, in the 7 months of soft launch. We just needed more. Lots more. We needed more social features. So this was following the plan. Alliances, when they got online, big improvements in the metrics. It's a free-to-play game, so we measure everything. More heroes. We definitely did not have those 100 heroes when we went live with the first version. I think we had like 30 or 40. So that was kind of like filling the gaps, making sure we match the references. More color, as pointed out earlier. You know, the players woke up one morning and there was much more purple and pink and green and all the rest of the colors in the game. And as an interesting side note, we added more tutorial. And this is still a point of some of the complaints we get, that we had 5 or 10 minutes of gameplay in the beginning of the game, which you can't skip and you have no freedom. But we do take you through all the game features in a nice orderly fashion and the story and all that. We made that longer. And the metrics proved that was a good decision. But again, that went with the spirit of this game. That's probably not a decision you want to do in all of the games. But we basically did just more of everything. Some things did go differently. So love. We do have extra energy, extra mana, bit of that extra will to do some things better while following the big release plan. So a decisions and planning again. What to do with the extra energy? What things you can do better than you thought you could? So the thing we did was usability or UX or user experience. Improvements in this is something that can be worth a bit of extra time, a bit of extra iteration on top of what was previously agreed. So here's an example of an improvement we did before soft launch. So this is the first 4 months when we're kind of like hacking the game together, building it. You know, the bricks are going into place. So using the special attacks in combat took two clicks. You first chose who to attack, and then you launch the fireball or shoot the axe or whatever. Reducing this to be a single tap, so basically making it automated for most players, was something that got really good results after done. Players can still manually do that stuff. So this is a thing that kind of like, even in the team, was not that obvious for some, because we gotten of course used to how the game plays, but this was about making the game more usable for mobile player. So nothing's lost for advanced players, but slightly more casual players can play the game much faster. And immediately, even in the before soft launch version, we saw very positive feedback from the testing we did, video testing, tests we do like across the world. An example of usability improvement after soft launch. There's raiding. You can go attack other players in the game, or their bases or their heroes. It worked well enough. There was nothing shown in any of the numbers that we should iterate it, but we felt wouldn't it be awesome that we can reduce one of the screens from the loop. So you tap an enemy, you see his info, you see your info. Anyway, you go through a handful of screens before you get to battle, and again, how could you get a bit faster there? We looked to a lot of references in other games. Many of our things in our game work similarly than some other games, but we had no reference. Other games do this bit clunky as well, but we wanted to try to make this bit faster, and in the end we managed to cram the information needed into single screen, probably in a way that everyone enjoyed, so it didn't get too cluttered. But this took, in our terms, a lot of time, several builds, even few failed tries. So week and a half of testing. So that was like for us, oh, that's a lot of time spent like fine-tuning something and doesn't have to be done. But that's like love well placed. So third takeaway, go live super early if you can. It worked well for us. Beyond this point, be dragons. So there's other things. The game is now live. We're doing user acquisition. We're doing live ops, community management, many other things, but those might be topics for other talks some point in the future. Interesting stories there are, but these things are now approached differently. The brute force method we kind of like used to go live does not apply in this anymore. So we have changed our plans, but that's another story. So recap, thorough planning of the product or the game can save a ton of work later. But it requires discipline, or at least we went there with heavy discipline. The decisions matter. Outsourcing allows you to punch above your weight. You can reach really high with that, but requires understanding of what you're really getting. Going live can be super beneficial. You'll be measuring kind of like how good the game is and how well you're developing the game with metrics. You'll see how real people interact with the game. And that's kind of like that. Covers the crash course of Empires and Puzzles. Any questions? We have maybe a few minutes. OMG.
How did you approach the problem of finding companies for outsourcing?
Was it finding or fighting?
Finding, like, how did you get started? Did you like?
Yeah, it's a good question. So, question was, how did you find the companies for outsourcing? So this is again part of that it was ridiculously easy. Google outsource art. Pretty much like some of the big names pop up immediately. You'll see Concept Art House, Vault, and so on. Those are first on the list. Their sites are good. It's very, very easy to approach them, and the replies are good. Few of the East European and European places were kind of like found, like someone's friend mentioned something, and some of the companies actually were founded while we were doing this game. So there's a company called Roommate Studio, for example, that we are now working a lot with, but that didn't exist in the beginning. I don't remember exactly how I found them, but Google actually gets you pretty far. Anything else? Maybe not. Enjoy the rest of the ARTtech seminars.
Oh, there's one more question. Sorry.
Cool.
Yeah, hi. A few years ago, there was another team here at the ARTtech seminars, and they had a pretty much completely different experience with outsourcing. And they said that when one of the partners they worked with sort of returned to sort of absolute garbage. Do you have any bad experiences at all, or was it completely positive?
I mean, it is possible. Let's say the very basic steps, like in outsourcing, of course, include that you ask and commission a test assignment. And then there's contractual obligations for the company to actually stick with the quality, because they could just do one really good drawing and then the guy who does the great drawings goes to take a holiday and they do something else. All of these things are possible, but we didn't meet these things basically at all. There were some changes in some of the aspects of the quality, but the one thing that helped here is that we worked with several different companies. It's not not all of the eggs were in a single basket, and that kind of like was a decision to done as well, because I knew that we want to have hundreds of heroes, and even just for the sake of variety, it's probably a good thing that different companies do them. And we actually took a bit of break with some companies. If some company, few of the assets were like, yeah, they're good, but they could be better, we maybe leave that company like just waiting for a few months to do assets with other companies. But we had no absolutely awful experiences. That being said, we ordered pretty much the easiest stuff to order. Nice 2D paintings of heroes. So the moment you go with more complex things, I assume there might be some extra steps that need taken. Good question.
Yeah, even with a team as experienced as yours, did you have any major hurdles that you can recall?
Good question. So yeah. No. No. If we would have had, we would not have been able to do it in this time. So it is always possible to have major hurdles, and we were just 11. I mean, if someone would have gotten ill in a wrong point, that already would have derailed a lot of things. But the lucky part of this project was that there really were no major issues. None of the usual things that went wrong really got along the way. So very lucky. Experienced, but like what's the role of luck there? Like we had to be very lucky as well.
Okay, if there's no more questions, thank you very much, Tim.